The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Welcome to the Knights of the Round Table meeting. Got a special meeting today that I'm excited about. One of our own fellow Knights is our special guest, Steve Gray. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Hey, how are you? Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Really appreciate it. Everybody's excited because traffic is always an exciting topic. Everybody wants to know how to get more traffic.
Yes.
You're the dude.
That's,
So
I don't know. I don't know about the dude. I am a dude, that's for sure. I have bought, and the team has bought a fair amount of traffic. But
that's somewhat of an understatement. You guys
well,
buy a
you know,
lot
like
of
we were talking
traffic.
before, the longer you get in this. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I say you guys have bought a lot of traffic.
We have bought a lot of traffic, but like I was talking with you at your little mastermind, what was that? 2 months ago, July?
Yeah, back in July.
You know, the more you do this, the more you find out. The more you do it, the more you find out that you don't really know that much. And so there's always somebody that's smarter and better. But in answer to your question, we do buy a fair amount of traffic. We spend a good bit on the health business and the survival business, and there's always plenty to be had.
Yep, absolutely. That's a Zen thing, by the way. I just found that out a couple months ago. The ultimate state in Zen is the beginner's mind. The more you get to know this stuff, and the more you do it, and the more successful you are at it, the more you realize that there's so much more that you don't know.
And it's very true. I mean, you've been in direct marketing for 20 years, 29 years,
Mm-hmm.
20 years?
20 years in direct marketing, yeah.
Yeah, and I've been in 10, and it just gets, the more you, like you were saying, the more you learn, the more you find out, wow, there's a whole other level that we can go. And it's kind of like, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to get? So
That's for sure. So
but I will say that if there's anything that you wanted to spend your time to get good at, direct marketing would be the one at the top of my list.
I would totally agree with that. It's worked out pretty good.
It has. It's a fun. If you could be digging ditches or during direct marketing, or actually, ditches is probably wrong side of the spectrum. But in anything other than direct marketing, I love this business. It's metric driven. It's scalable. It's profitable when done right, and it's exciting. I mean, you talk about launching stuff from your kitchen table. As soon as you have an idea and get copy for it, you can have a business up and running. And there's a few details about process and payments and all that, but with ClickBank and all that's out there, it's literally easy to start a business in a week.
Yeah, you literally can. You can have a brain fart of an idea this weekend in a week, actually be getting traffic to it and testing your idea. So I want you to tell your story, but I just want to give a brief introduction. Steve is not a guru guy. He's not a for-hire traffic guy. He is an entrepreneur, and he has several different businesses and several different niches, and he's also been a super affiliate and has run traffic doing that kind of stuff. So he's my go-to guy when it comes to traffic stuff. And he's a great entrepreneur. He's got an interesting brain, because it seems like most entrepreneurs are either they swing like to the extreme right-brained guys who are maybe idea-driven, copy-driven guys, and they suck at the analytical stuff. Or the vice versa. They're really not the best guys for the marketing stuff and the ideas, but they're the great guys for the analytical stuff. And you seem to be good at both those things, which I still don't understand, and I'm actually jealous of.
I actually I think I get the marketing. I'm not if like I told you at I am certainly analytical, but I think if I had my kryptonite, my weakness is I'm just not as strong in the copy. I can do it, and I certainly understand the angles and what needs to happen. But if you ask me to sit down and write a letter, it's probably going to take a long time before you ever see any copy. But as you're saying, they both clearly tie in because you can't have one without the other, and I think it's an interesting dynamic because a lot of people think traffic exists in a vacuum, where you're going to go buy a zillion clicks from somewhere and then you're going to send it to an offer and it's just going to work. But the reality is it actually takes both of them to make things gel. And anybody who's bought any amount of traffic can tell you that you can have one angle off or one ad off and it can kill the whole campaign. And yet you flip that one switch and everything works. So it's like I said before, it's a unique and dynamic business and environment to operate in. It certainly keeps you on your toes.
Absolutely. So you're going to be learning from a guy who does it. This is a guy who does this stuff every day. He doesn't just promote himself as a guru and talk about stuff that works 15 years ago. So I'm going to just turn the entire floor over to you, Steve. If you have stuff that you want to show on your screen or you want to screen share or whatever, you let me know and I can turn that over to you. Just let me know whatever you need from me to make this happen.
Well, let's ask your peeps. I mean, I've got I know that there's a couple of the guys that were in the mastermind that are on, so they're going to get a second hearing of what they heard, a month and a half ago. But if any of the others have any opinions as to whether they'd like, because the only screen share that I can show would be a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation and then some website examples as they happen. But I can talk, I can show. It's kind of up to them, whatever they want. I'm flexible. There's nothing super exciting. Whatever's gonna meet their needs and their interests the best.
Well, I'll wait for some feedback. Go ahead and send in the question box if you'd like to see some supporting visuals. You've got some that you can use, right, Steve?
I do. I've got a presentation that I've used at Russell Brunson's event. It's the same one I did at yours. I've done a very similar one with the Amazon guys a year or two ago, yeah, I'm happy to share. And why don't we just do that? Why don't I just show the PowerPoint and we can go from there? And if there's questions or whatever, then we'll adapt it and go, address it however we need.
That sounds good because I'm seeing overwhelming number of yeses. They want to see the graphic supportive stuff. So I think I just need to. I should know this by now. Make you presenter. I think this turns it over to you.
Okay. I'll show my screen. Okay, I'll do it. All right. So can you see my screen now then or not?
Yep. I love it when the technology works.
So I'm assuming you'd like me to record. Would that be a good thing?
It's always good to have a backup. I'm recording on my end. If you wouldn't mind hitting your recording button, that would be awesome.
Yeah. All right, so I'll record as well. Okay, so if there's anything that's been a while since I've run a webinar, so if I lose you guys or something happens, give me a minute to deal with the interface. I can see any questions there, so if you guys have them, happy to answer them if they come up. Just send them in, and this is going to be very, I don't know what the right word description is. This is totally not a sales pitch webinar. This is all training. So I will tell you a little bit about where I've been and what I've done, but the majority of the conversation here will be about the how-to. So feel free to interrupt anytime, send in questions, ask for clarification, etc. Can you guys see the PowerPoint as it is, or do I need to make it a little bit bigger?
It looks fine on my end. We'll see.
Okay.
Does anybody?
It'll be
Yeah, we're
it'll be
getting
easy to
good. We're getting
manage if
looks
I can.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If it looks fine, then I'll leave it like that, so I don't have to go back and forth from present. All right. So this first slide, for some of you that know me, you know a little bit about my story. Some of this stuff probably needs to be updated, which I'll give you the updates on that here in a little bit. But you know, we've been online. I've been online since 2002. I actually, like a lot of online marketers, got started in the MLM industry, and you know, started working with Herbalife. I thought it was a funny story. I got a auto dialer call on my answering machine, and I thought, well, this is interesting, you know. So I looked into it, and I knew it was. And I know you've been in Amway, Dan. I was in Amway years ago, early teens, or sorry, late teens, and never could make that work, and really wasn't a fan of the bug your friends and neighbors and hit up people in the mall who you have no, you know, don't know who they are, or they don't know you from Adam, and you're trying to get them to come to a meeting. It's a really, really bad lead gen method, but it builds a lot of character, and you get used to hearing no a lot. So I had that experience in the past, and then when I'd heard Herbalife, I thought, well, this is interesting. You know, they're generating leads with some kind of marketing process. So I joined up. You know, I thought for sure, being an ambitious and smart guy, I'd be able to figure it out and make it work. And anybody who's been in MLM knows that it's a lot harder than it looks. And I failed miserably. I ended up spending, I don't know, $50,000 or $60,000 worth of advertising that never backed out, and you know, just dug myself in a hole and just made a mess of it, really. And in that process, though, the kind of the silver lining was that I went to one of the rah-rah events that most companies throw to keep everybody excited when you're not making any money, and talked to this guy who said he was selling Herbalife products online. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because he was, said he was doing about $50,000, $60,000 a month in sales. And for me at that time, those were big numbers, big numbers. And I thought, wow, if he could do it, heck, if I could sell, half of that or a quarter of that, then that would be something. So I went back and proceeded to build out my e-commerce site, and I did it. This was, I don't know how many guys remember the age of stomping the search engines and Yahoo stores and all of that with Andy Jenkins. But that was kind of the time frame when I was working on this, and I built out a Yahoo store, and I did it all myself, put the images in and wrote all you copied and pasted all the 15 zillion products and did all the promotion. And long story short, ended up getting it ranked on the first page of Google, and figured out how to make some sales, and started. That was a time frame when Google was just coming on the scene, started running some Google traffic, and I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. I was making sales, but I didn't know how to track it. I didn't know how to see if it worked, if it didn't work. So kept doing that for a little bit, and this is one of the big lessons that I took away, is that you kind of have to, if you're going to be in business, you need to own your own product, right? You got to control the product, you got to control the marketing process, because all those pieces that you don't control, you end up losing the leverage. And doing like $16,000 in sales was like our highest month on that e-commerce store, and I think we made like $4,000, which isn't terrible, but for most guys in an info business, if you make 16 grand, the majority of that's profit. So it was a learning experience, and I took that, and that was kind of like, I realized that there was no way I was going to scale that to anything worth any amount of money. At the time, to me, making 10 grand a month was like the thing. If I could make 10 grand a month and work from home, I would have accomplished something. And I didn't see it, I didn't see it happening through that path. So what I did was I took that knowledge, and I went into the World of Warcraft market, decided to be an affiliate there, and it started promoting product, buying traffic on Google, buying way back when little simple media buys, banners on Warcraft sites. And I thought that I had accomplished something when I was, clearing $5 or $6 grand a month in sales. And talked to the guy that I was promoting, And he's like, yeah, we did, I did, and this is taking mine, this is a 19-year-old kid at the time. He's like, yeah, I did $40,000 in profit this month. And I thought, well, hold on a second. It was like another wake-up call. Wait a second. I'm doing all the work. I'm figuring out how to drive traffic to the site, and this guy that can barely write a sales letter made 40 grand. So I realized quickly that I was on the wrong path. I needed to fix my ways. So then decided to launch a World of Warcraft product, and that was kind of my first foray. And this is late 2007, early 2008. We had a product called Warcraft Wealth, and that was our first foray into actually being a product owner. And I had partnered with somebody at the time, and they put the offer together. I ran the traffic, and things went well. It kind of took off from there. We parlayed that into a few more Warcraft products, and then this is late 2008. There was a product on ClickBank called, it was Green Energy or Power. I can't remember the exact name because nobody even remembers it anymore. But they were selling how to do-it-yourself solar panels, and my partner and I thought, well, that would be interesting to run. So we put that offer together, and literally in a matter of months, we were doing hundreds of sales a day, and it just kind of took off. And so it was a really interesting experience to see what few things you have to get right to get things to work, but also how critical those few things were. So we proceeded to do that, and ended up hiring some guys and built a team. And that one we actually ended up, our product was called Homemade Energy, and the guy that I had hired to buy traffic, we were buying so much traffic that we neglected the important part of taking care of our customers and our chargebacks and everything else, and eventually ClickBank shut us down. Basically said, you guys can't process anymore, and that business that was doing thousands of sales a day, hundreds to 1,000 sales a day was out of business overnight. And that was another learning lesson. And so I took all that and finally said, enough of that, I'm going to take care of this myself. I stopped working with my partner, and then in late 2012 decided to go build the health company and the survival business. So that's kind of like a longer version of the story, but that's how I got to where I'm at today. And so I took all that knowledge that I learned in the process of screwing everything up and used it to go build my survival business, my health business. Some of these numbers in here are wrong. One of the one that's actually there that's 5+ million. We took some of these media buying strategies I'm going to talk about, and a guy had approached me for Garcinia, Cambodia, and said, hey, we've got an offer, I know how to run it, I want you to buy traffic. So I hired a guy, his name was Adam, he bought the traffic, and very quickly we went from nothing to hundreds of orders a day. Literally, this is last part of 2013, I believe. And quickly, from like the month of August in 2013 to December, we ended up doing like $5 million in sales. It just completely and totally blew up. Same thing happened. And you and I have talked about this, Dan. The only thing that's worse than not having too many not having enough sales is having too many. And that whole business, he didn't have his metrics down. He didn't understand the business. He understood the business model. He didn't have the tracking and the processes and the operations down to where it was running like a machine, and that thing folded as well. So I then refocused on what I spent all my time on now is our health business and survival business. So a couple things, and that you can read it. I won't read all those particular bullets, but paid traffic is very, very powerful. And any of the people that have heard the presentation or have bought traffic know that when you control your traffic, you control your business and you control your destiny. As long as you can convert it and acquire a customer for break even or better, you have a business that can scale. And so we've used that model for all the other businesses that we operate. I use paid traffic and the survival and now the health business. And funny enough, thanks to your help, we're now getting outside of the digital realm in the health business and starting to do some newspapers, starting to test some direct mail. But all the same ideas and processes that I'm going to talk about here apply to all of that and how to scale that out and how to use them. Any questions so far? I know I was kind of rambling a little bit there with the background, but I'll get into the meat of it. Everybody good?
If you got any questions,
I don't hear any.
Yep. Enter them in on the
Just drop
box
them in.
if you got any questions.
Yep.
Can
All right, so let's go on.
I'll
Go
ask
ahead.
my own question. I think maybe a misnomer I hear a lot that people seem to think that you need to have a large amount of capital to start, testing online with traffic. But I know
Mhm.
the way you do it is very conservative. Yes, you can scale up fast, but what kind of capital do you need to start with for generating traffic the way that you do it?
I think that literally you can start with a few hundred dollars to a few thousand. When I say a few thousand, like $1 or $2 grand. And depending on everybody's situation, that may seem like a lot or it may seem like a little. But with some of the direct buys that we're going to talk about, it's very easy to put an ad on somebody's site. In fact, we just did one in the survival space. The guy, when we reached out to him, he's like, I don't have, I don't do advertising. He had Google Ads, AdSense on his site, but we bought the entire site for like $250 for the month, and we get a couple hundred clicks a day. It's not huge traffic, but it's enough to put an offer up and test to get an idea if something works. He's ecstatic for his 250. And then you go up to sites like, you got a Newsmax or a Glenn Beck or a Blaze TV, some of the bigger ones that are used to selling advertising. And to get on those sites, you may have to spend 4, 5, 10 grand to do it. But I'm going to show you how to remove as much risk as possible, so that when you're starting out with the clearest, most concise set of variables that will give you a chance to succeed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So moving on, some basic stuff here. What is media buying? So I'm sorry if this is. I start at my version of marketing. I call it block and tackle, or I think it was Lombardi. Which every year that they went into training, he got out of football and he started their training with "This is a football," and you think it's stupid because it's so basic, and yes, all you're past that, but I look at this business as a business of fundamentals, and it's about doing the same things over and over and over again that work and have been proven to work for decades. So this is my version of "This is a football." So media buying is usually referring to paid traffic that's non-search. Like if you say you're going to go buy Google AdWords on the search network, most people don't call that a media buy. Now, if you're buying traffic on Google's content network, that could be referred to as a media buy, or perhaps a display ad on somebody's site. You can do email media buys where you're actually buying traffic from people's email lists. We'll talk about all that. But it's been around for a long time, and it originally started, as you're familiar with, Dan, offline, right? Newspapers and TV and radio and magazines. That was a media buy. When you wanted to go buy media, it meant you were going to put a space ad in a magazine, or you were buying a half-page ad in a newspaper, or a full-page ad, or whatever, or a radio spot. And then as it moved online, it was more, or now refers to the banners, like I said, banners and display, or to email traffic. And as I mentioned there at the bottom, some people will call, hey, we're buying media on Google. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good example. It gets the terminology gets thrown around because it sounds sexy and powerful, right? We do media buys. Well, yeah, okay, so you're buying advertising, but really, regardless of whether you buy it on Facebook or Google, doesn't matter. It's large-scale advertising. Most people, you'll hear them say, "Hey, we're buying traffic on Facebook." They won't say we're doing Facebook media buys. Now, some people will say the content network is a media buy, but a lot of them refer to that as Google. So, media, and I've alluded to this, and I hope I haven't come across as overly stodgy or boring as we've warmed up to this, but media buying, it's not a secret tactic. It's not a special method. It's not going to make you money overnight. If you've got an offer that's failing or you're not making money, figuring out how to buy media to it's not going to make it work all of a sudden, right? It's not what I say GRQ is. It's not get rich quick. It's not a cure-all. And it's definitely not guaranteed to work for every market or every offer. And I talked with you a little bit earlier today, Dan. You were mentioning about getting traffic for some of your internet marketing or marketing related offers. And it's not the same as going out to buying traffic for something in the IM space is not the same as buying traffic in the health space, right? Well, where you've got a bazillion baby boomers who are worried about joint pain and blood pressure and blood sugar and all the other things they're worried about. There's literally endless traffic there. Something a little bit more niche, like a internet marketing type of training, or take an example of real estate agents, right? Real estate agents are all over the place, but you don't really see a lot of media buys targeting real estate agents. There's better methods to reach them. So it's not necessarily going to work for every market, and it's certainly not risk-free, right? I mean, nothing. If anybody's been in this business for any amount of time, they know that there's some amount of risk that they're going to assume as they move forward. You got to try something, test it, see if it works, get some data, and maybe it works and you make money, maybe it doesn't. So I think a perfect example of this is the newspapers that we're testing in the health business, Dan. You know, with your help, we got that going, and we finally had our first round. We tested 4 different versions, and some of them did okay, some of them did poorly, but we certainly didn't make money, right? And most people, a lot of people would say, okay, well, I didn't make money, I'm going to be done. But if you've done this for a while, you say, hey, I didn't lose money. What I did is I bought some data that I now can go back and iterate on, make things better, improve the offer, improve the ad, and try again. And it's this iterative process that we go through to get to the point to make it work. So media is great. If you have something that's already working or working to some degree, going out to scale it, that's great for media, particularly if it's in a market, like I said, that you can advertise and there's a lot of traffic for. It's certainly additional advertising channels. So like I keep using our health company as an example, we're doing media buys, but we're also working on newspapers and rolling out direct mail. So we're using additional channels. So it's a channel. Just like any of the other channels that work. So you got to test it. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. The actual process, though, as you'll see as we go through it here, is not super complicated. And when you get the right offer and the right ad, I will say, I'll use the word magical, it is almost magical sometimes when you see things take off. When you get something with that right combination, the ad with the right hook that goes into the landing page or the sales letter that just grabs the person and brings them in. I don't know the guys on some of the people on the call here. I don't know their level of sales, right? So 10 sales a day may seem like a lot, others 100, but literally we've had offers and have offers in our health business that are doing 500 plus sales a day. One offer with media buying. So it's the sky really is the limit. So back to what I was talking about earlier, and this is a football, right? So the fundamentals are what drive this whole thing. And direct marketing is all about fundamentals. Everything that we do and we talk about is going to be market driven and marketing driven, meaning that it's what the market wants, what they respond to, and what we know works from a direct marketing standpoint. Observation and adaptation, I alluded to that already. You're going to spend some money, you're going to figure out if it works. If it doesn't work, you're going to adapt to it. And not only that, but you're also going to observe what other people are doing in the marketplace. One of the things that is so beautiful about being online is that you can see what your competition is doing. It's wide out in the open, and they've, as the saying goes, they're showing, raising the kimono, and you can see exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, and pretty much reverse engineer the process. So the next line, kind of the repeat advertising, there's 2 ways that this can go, and most of the time somebody who buys ads over and over and over again, especially if they're spending any kind of volume, they're either making money. Now they may not be making money right away, they may be working on it, but they have something that's working, right? So most likely they're making money or they're getting there, or they're just plain stupid, because if you're not tracking, you don't know. Brand advertisers are a great example. They're just buying, they're throwing ads out all over the place, and maybe somebody will see our ad and, oh my gosh, I decided that I really needed that Ford car today because I saw that banner on Yahoo. Well, not likely, right? But there's that kind of advertising. It's very data driven, and direct marketing is a very data driven business. You've got to, if you're not naturally talented with the data, you need to find somebody to help you analyze it. You don't necessarily have to be an analysis guy, but you certainly need somebody that can look at something and tell you whether it's working or not, and look at the data and see why it is working and why it's not. Got to track everything. And the biggest thing here, that's why I love reading your letter, Dan. I get it every month, and as soon as I get it, I tear it open because there's always some nugget in there about making good old direct marketing work. And you're a big fan of the last one of, don't reinvent the wheel, right? Don't take something that's worked for years and years and years and try to be creative about it and invent something that somebody hasn't done yet. Just take what's out there, apply it, and adapt it to your particular situation, and don't get creative. So back to the market. I always use, people say, well, tell me about media buying, and my answer is, well, the magic's in the marketing. And I've got a good example of this. I had a guy that worked for me. His name was Jared. Jared was a very sharp guy, very smart. He came from advertising sales, so he understood the business in terms of what we were doing. He understood where it fit in the process, but he did not understand marketing. And he didn't understand why somebody would want to or would be interested in clicking on an ad, and what that ad meant to their psyche when they read it, and what happened to them when they got on the landing page and saw the copy, and how that made them respond. Like anybody who's written any copy, that's what you think about. So I could give Jared an ad, and I could say, here, Jared, here's an ad that is one that you should run, and he could go buy traffic like nobody's business. And as you're going to see, the actual mechanics of buying traffic are very, very easy. It's the marketing behind it that really drives everything else. So if you're not super savvy at marketing, you see if you can find somebody or find somebody that can help you write ads, and maybe if you're more technically oriented, more analytical, and you don't do the marketing, you can buy the ads and they can do the marketing, etc. There's a lot of ways to skin it, but you certainly need the marketing when you're going to buy any kind of ads, because it all ties together, right? So it's the hook and the offer and the creative and all the pieces that fit together. And we'll talk about the funnel here as we go along, but you're spending $1 on an ad, as an example, or 10 cents or 20 cents or whatever your click is, and your ultimate goal is to make more than that per click on the back, or when you get a customer. Ideally, if you're super sharp about it, you can make money day one, right? We can talk about, I know you have some thoughts on making money on the front, which we've talked about, Dan, about if you're making money, that's actually an opportunity to acquire more customers. So, maybe break even instead of make money. But the point is that if you're on top of it, you can make it work like same day. If you get really sophisticated with it, you can break even on the same day and make a shit ton on the back end, right? That's where all the money's at. So you can just look, if you're curious about like what offers are great offers, all you got to do is start peeking around on some of the sites. Especially, there's a lot of sites running on native advertising these days. 10, 15 minutes in Facebook, and you're off. You click on an ad about the 5 things that guys hate to do or whatever, and you click on it, and then it's a blog type site, and down at the bottom there's ads down there that people are running, and a little click here and a click there, and you pretty quickly will find yourself several offers that you can look at. If they're running, that's an example, what I'll talk in more detail in a sec about how to engineer that, to backwards engineer that, but it's right there for your viewing. So if you have any idea, you want to know what offers are good, all you got to do is look, right? So I kind of qualify what makes it good or bad, right? Well, objectively, it's your EPC, or your earnings per click. If you're spending $1 to send it to an offer and it earns you $1 back, well, that's good, right? You broke even. But if you send that same $1 click to another offer and it makes you $1.50 for every click that you send, then clearly the $1.50 offer is better than the $1, right? So that's kind of an objective way to look at it. Is it good or bad? Well, if it's converting at all, that's a good thing. I mean, if you send your clicks to an offer and nothing works, that's not a good sign. But if something works, then you have something to work with, and you're able to optimize it from there. So it's really it's a number. We use EPC, I think, is the basic. As in all marketing, if you don't know what your customers want, you don't know how they're going to respond to your ads, you're going to have a lot of confusion in the marketing process. So a 25-year-old male is going to respond to things about growing six-pack abs and looking like a hunk and getting laid every weekend or every day or whatever, right? You tell that to a 45-year-old divorced guy, he probably really doesn't care whether he gets six-pack abs. He may want to certainly look better, but it's a completely different driver. Or a 45-year-old woman, right? She may or may not want abs, but most of the time she wants to fit in her clothes, she wants to look good, she wants to feel good. Baby boomers, 55 plus, they have different issues that are driving their habits and their actions. So you need to know your customer and what those hot buttons are, because that's going to drive everything that we do. And then finally, a lot of times what people want to do is they want to think, oh, well, this is complicated, this is hard, I don't really want to do this because it's, I might not be good at it, and they will try to take this and outsource it to somebody else. And it's a bit like trying to write copy or outsource copy before you've written some yourself. You send it out to a copywriter and they send it back, and they look at you and they say, this is great copy, as they nod their head up and down to get you to agree, right? And if you don't know any different, you got to take them for their word. But if you've written copy, you can quickly tell whether it's good, bad, or just a pile of shit. So same thing goes with media buying or buying traffic of any sort. Do you have to do it forever? No, absolutely not. There's a lot of guys that buy traffic in their business because that's what they like to do. But then there's other guys that have a traffic team. I've got a team of guys that buy traffic for the businesses so that I don't actually have to do it and I can focus on bigger picture strategic things. Any questions so far on any of this? If not, I'll keep going. If there is, pop it in the box. So here's, in fact, I was just in California this weekend. I went to a little email event with Tyler Bramlett. We were talking about email follow-up. There's a guy there named George Karastanasis, I believe is his name. He's got a product called Cruise Control Diet and a couple other offers he's launching. And I was talking with him. He's a good friend of me and Andre's. And he was telling me when we were having drinks, he's like, this one thing, which I'm about to tell you, is the thing that made all the difference for me when buying traffic. And this is kind of what I would call the crystal ball to how to make traffic work. So this is something this is what some guys call a rider downer, right? This is something you definitely want to take note of. And what it is it's the understanding that there's a lot of variables in traffic. There's an offer, there's a landing page, and I'm going to talk about those here in just a second, but there's a lot of variables. And as you know, if you did any math in high school, you can see my 10 equals x plus y plus z plus 3, right? Well, that's a polynomial equation, many variables, that's what polynomial is. And there's a lot of ways, actually there's an infinite amount of ways to solve that, right? There's, for example, 3 and 3 and 1 would equal 10, right? So 3 plus 3 plus 3 and 1 is 10, or 4, 2, 1, etc., right? So those are all examples. My point here is that usually, even though there's an infinite variety of variables, there's usually only one or two combinations that are actually going to work. So your job when you're out buying traffic is to really optimize around what those optimal combinations are. And to me, it's a game of reducing the potential variables that exist so that you end up with the ones that you know work or are most likely to work that are going to give you the best chance of success. So here's some media buying variables, right? Customer demographic, what we talked about a minute ago. Are you marketing to baby boomers? Are you marketing to 23-year-old college guys? Are you marketing to 45-year-old women? You're marketing to divorced men, you're marketing to married women, et cetera, right? There is an endless variety of that. So that's a variable. Your offer, what's your offer? And when I say offer, I don't mean offer in the purest sense of offer on a piece of copy, like how is it offered? Like, is it a free trial? Is it a buy now with 60-day guarantee? Is it a soft offer? We'll mail it to you and bill you later. not talking so much about that. I'm talking about the offer in general in terms of the actual product and offer combination. But offer actually does, the actual purest idea of the offer makes a difference too. You can see obviously that there's a lot of free trial rebill offers that convert like crazy because they get them for $4.95 and then they charge them $80 a month until they charge back or sue them to stop, because that's been a model that's been around for years. So offer totally makes a difference. Landing page, right? I mean, we test landing pages on a regular basis, and it's amazing, like I was talking with Dan earlier, that the more you do this, you think, yeah, I know how this business works, and that page is going to kill it, and you run it, and it doesn't. And you're like, why doesn't it work? Well, it should have worked. It hit all the buttons, but it doesn't, right? So you've got landing pages that some work, some don't. You got to figure that out. The traffic source, right? So we talked about Google and Facebook, and there's things like Taboola and Rev Content and all sorts of native ads, content.ad, Outbrain. Those are some more native ones. But the point is that the traffic that's coming from that traffic source is going to be different than another traffic source. So your Google traffic is going to be a little different than your Facebook traffic versus a direct buy on a site. It will be completely different and act differently than a network buy. Your banners and ad copy, what your banner says, the hook on the banner, what the image is. Again, when we test banners, I'll talk about the aspects of the banner to test, but there are certainly aspects in there that when you test them, you would think, hey, that probably would make a difference, and it makes a huge difference. The image, the call to action, etc. So again, bottom line here, I don't want to sound like I'm rambling, but the bottom line is you've got to limit down to the least number of variables possible so you have the most control over the situation. That gives you the best opportunity to make it work. And finally, I say, you never really want more than one unknown. And let me give you an example of that. Is if you create a new offer, let's just say you're in, Dan talks about muscle building supplements, for example, right? So you've got a new muscle building supplement, you've got the offer put together, we're going to do it online, for example, and it's a brand new offer, never run before, hasn't been tested, you either wrote it yourself, got a great copywriter to write it, and it looks good, you think it'll convert. So you get that running, and you send some Google traffic to it, as an example, or Facebook, or any traffic for that matter. And it doesn't work. So now the question is, okay, it didn't work, or let's say it worked but not like we wanted it to. Why not? Is it the traffic that's not working? Do I have the wrong ads? Do I have the wrong hook? Or is it the actual offer and the copy itself, right? So you don't know when you've got two unknowns. Now take that same scenario and you do a little research like I'm going to show you how to do, and you find that somebody else has an awesome muscle building supplement or muscle building program that they're running on Rev Content, as an example. You do your research and they're on Rev Content or any traffic source. Process is the same, and you look at it, see what the offer is, and you know that they've been running there for a month or 6 weeks, so they're most likely making money, right? If you took that same exact traffic and you ran it to your offer and it didn't work, then at that point it's most likely your offer. Or if even better, you take that same traffic, you go promote their offer as an affiliate, you get it working, now you have the traffic and the offer, and you swap your offer out and it doesn't work, then it's your offer, right? Or if you know that their offer works in the traffic and you get it working, and then you go try Facebook traffic instead of Rev Content and it doesn't work, well, it's not the offer because it just worked on the other traffic, it's the traffic you're trying. So that's the two unknowns. We always, when we're testing, want to have something that we know to be true, so that when we get a result, we can balance our result off that. Okay, so here's this is my preferred rollout plan. I like doing it this way because I'm not risk averse, but I like to limit my risk. We've had a lot of times where we've spent money, on a network buy and it never backs out. The problem with network buys is if you don't have your offer and your ads and everything tweaked together, it's easy sometimes to spend a lot of money and not get anything back. So I like to test direct buys first. It doesn't have to be that way, it's just my preferred way of doing it. So I like to test direct buys, get a couple of them working on a couple different sites. Again, this isn't necessarily huge traffic, but all that we're trying to do here is figure out what works. So we get a couple direct buys going. That lets us figure out our banners and our landers and the sales process, everything we just talked about. Learn your EPCs and your metrics, so you get an average, cart value, funnel value. You get an EPC, what's each visitor worth to you. And then once you have that corpus of data, you're able to take that out and go to a network, because now you've got something that's known. You take that out and now you can expand it. And that's usually where we like to go to networks: Google Content Network, Rev Content, all the ones I just mentioned, right? Anywhere that we can run traffic on a major scale is a great way to do that. You can also accomplish some of the similar things. If you can run on Facebook and Facebook will let you run, then it's very easy to very specifically target your audience and get a little bit of traffic running to get the offer working, right? So, and then that's the same thing. So it doesn't have to be direct buys exactly, but you certainly want to have as targeted and focused visitor that's going to be most likely to respond to your offer to start with. All right, so let's go talk about research, right? So some of these sites have changed a little bit. I probably need to update the presentation, but we've used Quantcast. So let me show you Quantcast, for example. Quantcast. They used to be very open and give you all the data. You never had to really, pay for it. Now they've changed it a little bit. So let's see here. Let's just go to Fox News as an example, right? So Fox News, and they used to be that they would show you all of the. Let's look here. They're not showing it. Let me see if I can get what I want to show you here. Try another one. Let's try WND. Okay, so that's a good example. So again, it doesn't you can buy some of the data, and sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. But sites like Quantcast, and let me go back here and give you a couple of the other ones. Alexa are both good examples of figuring out what the demo of the site that you want to advertise on is, right? So if I wanted to go to WND, there's a couple ways to do it. One, you can certainly go to a site, click on the advertising links, and request a media package, an advertising package where it tells you who their visitors are, how many visitors they get. But I like to take that with a grain of salt, because that's the sales agency trying to tell me what the numbers are to sound the best so that I buy from them. So I like to have some kind of other way to look at it. You can do it in Quantcast. You can also do it in Google's Display Planner, which I don't have the exact link. If you just go over here, you got to log into Google now to do it. But if you type in Google and Display Planner, so Display Planner Home, if you're logged into AdWords, it will let you in. So I'm not logged in right now. But you can use Display Planner the same way to get the same kind of data. The whole purpose here is to get an idea of who you are marketing to. Now, what I'm talking about here is looking on a site, right? So if you're going into a brand new market, for example, and you know nothing about it, you can take this same process and run it on one of the offer sites, right? Find one that you find is doing a lot of traffic, and you plug it in here, and it will tell you the same kind of information. So in this example, it's WND, which is WorldNet Daily, a conservative news site. It's clearly mostly male. There's some female, but clearly this means it's predominantly male. 45 plus, 50K to 150K, college educated, mostly white, and highly Republican. And very active, right? So if you've got an offer that hits some of those buttons, or let's say you just wanted to talk to, you wanted to market to somebody that was a 45-year-old male that made $50,000 or more, WND could be a good site to advertise on, right? So that's what the purpose is here. We're going to get the demographics, understand who the person is, what they're doing, and what kind of visitors on the website. Now, so again, you can use, I'll show you what runs where, and AdBeat as well. We can use both of those. Let me see here. All right, and let me log into ones right here just a second. Okay, so we'll come back here. But AdBeat and What Runs Where are great tools that will let you look at an offer, and double check the ads, double check what they're advertising, how they're advertising, and we're going to go through that. So research a demo. I don't think there's any. I think that's pretty straightforward. If you need clarification, pop a question in there, and I'll answer it. Next thing you want to do is research the offers, right? So this is actually coming from What Runs Where. So let me see if I can find an offer. Let's do Instant Checkmate's a really big offer, right? You guys have seen that one. It's let me see if I look on Yahoo. Saw it here earlier today. Here's a car insurance one. That would be interesting, just as an example. But refresh Yahoo enough times and you'll see one. I don't see it here, but it will be an Instant Checkmate ad. So I'm just going to use that as an example to show you kind of how to look at things. I don't see it here. There it is. Forget Googling your name. News site reveals instant. So we click in here. We're going to bring it up, open it up, and look at it. So this is kind of the process that I go through. So they're obviously taking it to an article, and then they take it to Instant Checkmate. So it's instantcheckmate.com. So if I come over here to AdBeat and I type in Instant Checkmate, it's going to tell me what they're doing, where they're advertising, what ads they're using. I'm going to bring it in here, and What Runs Where is where. So again, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get data on an offer. Now you're going to use this. You're not going to type in Instant Checkmate, and I'm using this as an example. You're going to pick an offer that's in your market that you know is doing really well, and you're trying to backwards engineer, right? That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get information on the offer. So by checking this here, look, they're running traffic all over the place. They're on Google, they're on Rev Content, Pulse 360, which went out of business. Probably running under a different version now. App Nexus, they're running some on Bing, advertising.com, content.ad, etc., right? So you got a wealth of information right there. If I go here, click on landing pages, now I get to see all the landing pages that they're running. You can see which ones are running the most. They're running quite a few. Some are running in the UK, Australia, etc. But you can see the different types of landing pages. So this is, well, that one's not working. Let's look at this one. So that's a page that they're running. So you click I understand, and then you can see what they're doing, right? Purpose here, again, I don't want to get off in the weeds, but you've got a lot of data here. You can see what in this case Instant Checkmate is using and how they're using it. So it's really perceptive to see that, look, they're running a ton of ads to these landing pages, probably because they work, right? And if I want to go look at their banner ads, I can see what kind of banner ads they're running. Why are these banner ads coming up? Because they're the ones that they're running the most, right? Especially if you rank them by ad string. So they're running these ads all over the internet. They're sending it to landing pages, and in this case, I could click on this ad, and it brings up that particular ad and will show me where it's running and the landing pages. So let's let that finish there for a second. But now I have, like I was saying, I've got a wealth of information of all those variables I talked about earlier. If I was in this market and trying to create an offer like Instant Checkmate, I would know where they're advertising, what landing page they're running with that advertisement, right? And the ads that they're using. I now have a huge head start on getting something to work because it's already working. All I'm doing is grabbing that information, right? Okay, so research the offers. Any questions there, pop them in. I think that's pretty straightforward. You just want to get the, like I said, landing pages, ads, traffic sources, etc. Now, you also, again, here's the ads. So you research the banners. Now, this is an ad that one of Dan's friends ran for a while, a year or two ago, and it's I've used this as an example because they had a great success with this kind of ad to an offer that was about, running your own power from home. And in this particular example, these were the ads that were running. So going back to what I was talking about a second ago, if I go back here to what runs where, I can see all these kind of banners, right? So that would be the kind of banners that I would want to run if I was going to run this offer or a very similar offer. Okay, so the banners. Now we talked about the landers. We just discussed that. I'm not going to go there again. But the thing to keep in mind here, and why we're looking at landers, is there's a couple types, right? So you've got the VSLs that are all over the internet, and they work very well. You've got pre-sales. You can have just a text-based pre-sale, a quiz, etc. Advertorials, right? And I'm going to show some examples of this here in a second. Advertorials are a advertisement that looks like an editorial piece. So it looks like an article, but it's actually a sales piece. LFSL is a long-form sales letter. And then you've got lead gen and CPA style pages. There's tons of ways that can be done. This is an example of VSL from one of our old versions of our blood pressure product. Here is an example of a landing page. We're no longer using this one, but that was a landing page we were testing at a time, right? So it's a text-based landing page. Here is a quiz. We've run a quiz before. Again, one that we were using. This actually was one of the advertorials that was used for the Garcinia campaign, right? So it looks like a content site. You see these all over the place, right? So what does all this, tell you? What do you learn from it? It's very, very, straightforward, right? So we now know all the variables, like I mentioned before, the ads, the landers, the traffic sources, etc., that are working for that particular offer. Again, if somebody's paying for advertising, they're doing it because it's making them money, right? And they're most of the guys that are spending a lot of money, they're not stupid, and that is an option, but most of the time it's going to be they're making money and it's working. So model it, right? Take an offer that's working, add a new traffic source, and like I talked about earlier, does it work now? If it doesn't, then it's got to be the traffic, okay? So any questions there? Dan, how long do we have? I can speed up, slow down. All right, so back to baseline. When I say decide on a baseline, if you want to get really frustrated, try to make something work when you're testing 3 or 4 variables at a time. It's a lot easier to test one variable at a time and make sure it's all working so that you can move on to the next one. That's the simplest way. So I suggest either decide whether you're going to test your traffic first or the offer, right? So don't try to test both. Pick one and work on that. And so if there's, like I mentioned this one earlier, if there's a similar offer to yours, see if you can run it as an affiliate, because if it's something that's already a known, now you don't want to promote as an affiliate forever. And when I mean running as affiliate, I don't mean mail your list. I mean buy traffic to it as an affiliate. See if you can get it working. Now, if you get it converting and it's not necessarily profitable, that's not a bad thing, because you're going to have different metrics when you're the merchant, but it will give you an idea of if something works or doesn't work, right? So there's a great way to kind of cheat your way into a market is promote something as an affiliate. So if you can't do that, then you want to find traffic sources that are identical or very similar to what's already working, right? So now you've got what I call the baseline. Now you've got something to work with and something to iterate from. Okay, so you never know, if something's going to work until you test it. And the best way to do that is just spend a little money. So I like to start small and go out to what I say 3 to 5 sites, as direct buys. And again, I'm going to show you the process of that here in a second. But go out to 3 or 5 sites. Start with 10 banners or so, depending on. We'll throw in tons of banners now. Sometimes we test 20 to 50 banners at a time on tons of traffic because we can iterate through them so quickly. But when you're starting out, 3 to 5 sites, 5 to 10 banners is fine. And you want to test big differences, right? You want to try different angles, you want to try different hooks, images, etc. You don't want one banner and a second banner and the only difference is like one period on the banner. That's not the kind of testing you want to do. You want to test, a huge hook, right? You want to test a hook that's strictly curiosity, or you want to test perhaps a hook that's a big promise. as examples. You want to test a couple of landing pages. If you've got something that you know works, then run with what you know is the best one. And then don't forget to track everything. We use CPV Lab. We've also started using Volume, which is VOLUUM. It's also great tracking. You just need to get something that will keep track of your clicks and you can track all the way through. And then the whole idea here is just get something working. Like I was giving the example of the newspapers earlier, you know, it's not profitable yet, but we've got something working, which we now have data to go back and iterate. So break even, a lot of guys, you know, will send traffic and they will be upset that it doesn't work. And, you know, I tell them, look, breaking even, if you can break even on the first time out, that's like a home run. If you lose money on the first time, your first go at everything in terms of your first choice of banners and landing pages, etc., and you lose a little bit of money, that's also a good thing because you've gotten something working. Okay. So here's a couple examples of some banners, right? One of the things that we want to do with banners is make sure that they're emotional banners, right? We want them to be emotional ad copy. We want curiosity. I'll show you what ghetto is here in just a second, but it's going to be ghetto. We don't want it branded because those are the ones that get the clicks. We want headlines with a promise if we can do it with the body copy, emotional, builds on that headline, and then a very eye-catching image, not stock photos, right? We like to use real images from real people, and then you need a CTA or a call to action, right? Click here, find out more, etc., etc. And then you have the layout, right? So these are all aspects that when I talked about the different aspects of the banner you can test the headline, the body copy, the image, the call to action, and how the banner's laid out. There's a lot of ways to lay out the banner. You can lay it, you know, top to bottom, left to right, etc. So the other thing to keep in mind is, you know, when you're putting banners together on sites, you either want it to look like a banner and stick out like crazy, or what we tend to do more often is try to make it look like not a banner, make it not look like a banner, make it look like editorial, make it look like part of the site, and that usually drives the click-through rates crazy. You have to be aware of it so that some publishers will get really pissed if you put banners on the page that looks like their site, and then they get a bunch of users clicking on it, and the users complain because, oh, that's an ad. So you got to be careful with it, but it certainly works. So here's some banners, right? This is branded banners, right? AT&T, Amex, Target, and I guess that's Chevy, right? So we'll give them some props. They've got a learn more button, see more, shop now. So there is some call to action, but in terms of banners, they kind of suck. I mean, like really bad. They're not emotional. It's, look, I'm selling something, click on it, right? So here's kind of like an in-between, and I like these because they're not necessarily huge branded banners, but they're also not all the way ghetto like we like to run. There's a little bit more interaction with the banners, a little bit more you know, direct marketing style, but they're still kind of branded, right? This little pink one down here, you know, that one, it's been a while since I've seen that one, but that's an example of a banner that, you know, it doesn't really look like an advertisement. It looks like some crazy, just trashy advertisement, and that, believe it or not, makes people click. So here's the banners that we like to run. We looked at the power company one earlier, that Eat This, Never Diet Again. That was a banner that we ran for the Garcinia. #1 most deadly food was for blood pressure a year ago, and, you know, why was this video banned? That's a super curiosity-only banner, but we ran that for survival, and that worked great as well. So you can see some of those. They don't look like these other kind of banners, right? They don't look like branded banners. They're what I call ghetto, and they get clicks. Okay, so here's an example of what I told you about blending in. We ran this on Blaze newsletter, I think, and in their news, there's either on the Blaze newsletter or on the site, but this way that it's written, it's still an ad, but it looked exactly like the rest of the site, and the click-throughs on this were sky high. I mean, it worked great. So that's an example of blending in, right? So this one doesn't look like these banners here, but it was certainly used, and it worked great because it blended in with the site. Okay, so any questions at this point, shoot them in. I'm going to keep going so I don't have to keep you guys too much longer. All right, optimization, right? So we talked about this already. Once you get your buy going, you know, you're going to lose money. Just go in knowing that your first iteration is going to suck, right? It's not going to work. You're not going to make money, and it's going to be okay. But you got to remember that you're buying data. That's why I like to keep the risk very low. I don't want to go spend $10,000 and hope that it works, or know that it's not going to work and lose a lot of it. So I want to spend as little as possible to get the data that I need. That's the whole purpose. We usually run banners to 1 to 2 times the conversion value. And what I mean by that is if your cost, if you're trying to get a new customer for $50, then I'll run a banner for 50 to 100. Sometimes we'll stretch it to like 3 times, like 150, just to get some data. And the reason for that is that when you put banners up, the traffic and the response is variable, right? Sometimes it converts in the morning, sometimes it converts in the afternoon. You just don't know. And you want to give it enough traffic and enough time to really prove that it's working or not working. And the best way to do that is to let it run through a couple times your conversion value. That way you've got enough clicks, enough else. Now, if that's one way is a conversion value. Another way is you can just run it for a certain number of clicks, like 150 clicks, right? If you run it for 150 or 300 clicks and it doesn't get any sales, then it's probably not going to work. That number and what you do is completely variable, meaning you can do it less, you can do it more, but there's a certain point at which it's not working. And if you keep running it when it's not working, it's not going to magically start working. The whole point here is just to run it enough to get some data to make a decision on. So, if you're close at this point, when I say close, if you're targeting a $50 CPA and your banner's $150, probably not going to get to 50 without some major changes, either on the banner, the offer, etc. So I would pause or delete a banner like that. If you're targeting a $50 CPA and you're at 75 or maybe you're at 60, now you're a lot closer, right? It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to just make a little change that's going to work, but it's a lot easier to go from 75 to 50 than it is from 150 to 50, right? So I want to make sure that again, this is the optimization is a little bit of the art part of this. There's a lot of science behind it. You can make your rules, but there's also just a little bit of knowing the marketing side of when you say, hey, I'm going to let that run just a little bit longer to see what happens, or cut it, it's not going to work, right? So when I say compare your site results, what I mean is that in the example of going after 3 to 5 sites, right? If we're going after 3 to 5 sites, we want to make sure that we're looking at the conversion values across the sites. If one site's converting at 50 and 2 sites are converting at like 150 and another site's converting at 25, excuse me, then you have some really helpful data there to know that, hey, the $150 conversions probably don't want to run on those sites, right? The 50 and the 25, let's keep running there and let's make it better and optimize. And then maybe once we've optimized even more, we can go back and test again on the more, the higher conversion ones, right? So you want to compare against all of them. That's why having just one site is kind of like running a completely new offer and new traffic is, well, it either works or it doesn't, versus having a couple sites, you can see that it either works on some and not on others, or it doesn't work on all of them. You have a little bit more data to compare it with, right? So culling everything, I already talked about that. If it's not close or it doesn't have a chance to be close, then cut it. Don't spend money on it. Okay, so now we've got, that's kind of the what to do. Now let's talk a little bit about how to buy, right? Any questions so far? If there are, drop them in. If you want me to clarify anything, drop them in. Hold on here. Somebody's asking. What are we saying?
Yes,
okay,
Steve.
So somebody says, Steve says, I'm working on building a list and I want to drive traffic to a landing page that is just a survey targeted to my market. And after they complete the survey, they have the option of opting into my list. What would be a good way to drive traffic to this? Just by using FB ads and testing various surveys to see what ones get clicked the most. Okay, so yes, Facebook ads are a great one for that because we're actually running Facebook ads to a survey style like that. Works great. You can run banners to it, but if you can run it on Facebook, that would be your easiest way to start, simply because super high targeting, very easy to go after exactly who you want, and then you certainly want to put some. So in that case, let's just say, let me see if you said what the offer's about. You didn't say what the offer's about. So let's just say the offer's about muscle building again, right, as an example. If the offer's about muscle building and you're trying to do a survey on it, you want to try some different survey angles, right? So it's not just, hey, take my muscle building survey. It's the 3 foods to never eat when trying to build muscle, right? And do you know these 3 foods? And then it's a survey about that. Or, new muscle building breakthrough takes the world by storm. I'm just making them, this is all on the fly, right? I don't know if this would work. And then you do it. So, okay, so you said it's learning about sales and getting better at sales. Okay, so if it's about sales and you're targeting salespeople, then I would run something. I think it was like the, first thing that comes to mind was the old, I think it was a Caples ad, right? Do you make these mistakes in English, right? I would say try something like, do you make these mistakes in sales? Or do you know the 3 things that you do or could do that will kill every cell? Something like that. And I would try different angles to see which version they're responding to, and then I would tweak so I'd start with a survey of some sort, and then I would test the angles, and then I would refine the survey to match the angle. So you can do it that way, or you could just start running ads to a very generic survey and see which ads are working. That way you can figure out. Let's see what. Okay, so you already said you did the Caples headline, right? So very good. So that's where, I mean, you've got the idea then. So you just want to test like, hey, are you making these mistakes? Or you could try the other version in that example, which wouldn't be, are you making mistakes? But do you know about these 3 powerful secrets that will double your close rate, right? Or the number 1 secret of high-performing salespeople. Are you doing this? So that kind of ad, and then it goes to the survey, which you can then ask them, and then they opt in to get the results, and then they're on the list. So hopefully that answers. If it doesn't, let me know. All right, so back to how to buy. So we do all the research, right? We talked about that. That's what we spent the last hour going over. Who are we marketing to? What ads we want to use, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to test small, right? We're not going to spend $15,000 or $5,000. We're going to spend as little as we possibly can, and we are going to get it started. So here's what I call a low-risk IO, right? Low risk meaning, and again, we're doing site buys, right? We're not talking about networks or Facebook. This is specifically on direct buys on sites. I do a low-risk IO. It's very hard to lose money or lose a lot of money this way with a gotcha, which I'll tell you about, okay? So above the fold, when you're coming into a new market, I always start above the fold. They convert the highest. They're the best. They don't, let me put it this way. 90% of the time, above the fold works better than anywhere else. So sometimes you run into situations where below the fold can work, but above the fold, the majority of the time is the place to start. Once you get that working, you can try different variations in different locations on the site. And the other thing, and I don't know if I put it in here, but I always start with 300 by 250 banners. You've got it's like the industry standard 300 by 250. These banners back here, let me see right here. Sayan, I got your question. Give me just a second. I'll answer it. These banners here are 300 by 250, 300 wide by 250 high, and those are very standard banners. They've got 300 by 600 now. They've got a ton of sizes. I always start with 300 by 250 because it's like the go-to size, okay? So, again, you got to test sometimes. Maybe a different size works, and certainly on ad networks, they're not always going to be 300 by 250, but on direct site buys, that's the IAB standard. Okay, so above the fold, next thing you want an out clause, right? You've got to ask, hey, I want an out clause. I want to buy traffic from you, but I got to have an out clause. What's your out clause? Most of the time, anybody who's not a knucklehead that sells advertising knows about an out clause. It's just part of the business, right? So if they tell you it's not an out, if they tell you they don't have an out clause, then they're either bullshitting you or they really are just kind of weird. There are some places that are not so friendly with them, like for example, Premier, who reps Glenn Beck and some of the other sites. they are not big on 24-hour out clauses. You can get them sometimes, but the last time we checked with them, it was multiple day out clause. So the whole purpose here is the out clause, if you don't know, is something that lets you call up the rep and say, okay, cancel my buy today, and within that amount of time, 24 hours, 48 hours, 7 days, whatever, they'll turn the ad off. So it's your limiter, right? Hey, I don't want to run this anymore. I'm not making money. Turn it off. Then you limit your risk, right? So the big thing here is that when you buy advertising, and I'm going to talk about some of the reps here in a second, but you go to a rep and you're like, hey, I want to buy a $1,000 test, right? And they're like, who's this little, small-time player? I don't want to mess with you. Leave me alone. If you go to an ad rep and you say, hey, man, I want to buy $10,000. Can you give me some details on that? Let's get that running. He's all over it. They want to sell it to you. And you're like, well, I don't want to lose $10,000. No, you don't. So what you do is you put an out clause in on 24 hours. If you take $10,000, and let's just do for round figures, and you divide 10,000 divided by 30 days, because there's 30 days in a month, that's $333 a day, right? So if you've got a 24-hour out clause, you could run it for a day, see that it completely sucks, like you got no sales, and you turn it off, and then the next day, another $300, and you're done and you're out. So you risked on a $10,000 buy $600, $666. So you completely limit your risk by having that out clause. If that doesn't make sense, let me know, and I will explain that further. You want even delivery. So what does even delivery mean? It means that it means that you get the traffic delivered in an even spread. Okay? Sometimes, again, knuckleheads, those ad reps that they're like, hey, he ordered 1 million impressions. As soon as I deliver 1 million impressions, I'm going to get paid. So bam, here you go, and you get 1 million impressions in 2 hours, right? And you're like, crap. So you don't want 1 million impressions in 2 hours. If you buy 1 million, you want it spaced out across the month so you can see how the traffic works through multiple periods of time. So you've got to ask for even delivery. You want a frequency cap. Frequency cap is the amount of time that somebody sees your ads per day, right? So a frequency cap of 1 by 24 means any one person will only see the ad one time for the day. And that keeps your risk down, because if they see the ad and they don't click, seeing it a second and third and fourth time doesn't necessarily mean they're going to click then. Okay, so you want to start by 1 by 24. You can always change that later. Sometimes we have found that by going 2 by 24, 3 by 24, we get more volume and more sales without the CPAs necessarily changing, but 1 by 24 is a place to start. You want to ask to bill off your numbers if you can. Again, this is one that may or may not be allowed. A lot of times they'll push the bill off their numbers, but what I certainly want to do is ask them, say, hey, I want to bill off my numbers, or I want to at least compare my numbers to your numbers so that you can see the 5% discrepancy. Again, 5% is a ballpark number. Some people say our discrepancy is 10%, but basically that's the point at which if I bought 1 million impressions and they said they delivered 1 million, but I only show 900,000, that's 100,000 that I didn't see, that's a 10% discrepancy. Or vice versa. They may say that they sent you 1,000,001 and you only got 1 million, you got an extra 100,000, they want to bill you for it, you're like, no, that's not right. So that's what the discrepancy part's for. You need to ask about what's the discrepancy, because at some point there needs to be a way to cap it, because they're always going to basically overbill you if they can. That's the whole point here. Net 30, if you can get net 30s from them, then you want it. If they won't give you net 30, you need to put in the IO that they refund any unused prepay. That means if I pay you $1,000 now and I only run $500 worth of traffic, that you're going to refund that money to me. And finally, you want the first impression, meaning there's some sites that will impress multiple ads. So you put Joe's ad up first, and nobody clicks on it, so then they load Susie's ad, and then they load Bill's ad, and then they load Steve's ad, and then they load Dan's ad, right? So that's 5 or 6 different ads that are loaded. That's how many impressions. That's the impression depth. The difference is you want to be the first impression if you can, because it allows you to have control, the highest likelihood of getting the click, right? Because if somebody has seen 3 ads, or 4 ads and they haven't clicked, they're probably not going to click on the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th. They might, it happens, but not as likely as the first. So bottom line is you want the best chance of it working. Sometimes it's cheaper, and there's an example we were running on a site, I don't remember what it was, LiveScript maybe comes to mind, and we were on like the 8th impression, and the rep one day said, hey, why don't you try the first impression? And the guy that was buying from me was like, what do you mean, we're not on the first impression already? He's like, no, you didn't request it. So we requested the first impression, and it like literally turned the campaign around overnight because it wasn't working, and then all of a sudden the CPAs dropped in half. So something to keep in mind. All right, so any questions there on any of that? I know I'm speeding up. I'm trying to keep you guys from being on here too long. All right, so Sion says, is there a scenario where you let ads run past the 1 to 2 times value or 150 or so clicks, even if they aren't working? Some of the health guys like Geary and Joel Marion say it's not a real split test until you have at least 1,000 clicks, so I'm a little confused. Yes, so that's why I was telling you that it's a variable and there's a little bit of art to it. 1,000 clicks, I would say 1,000 clicks perhaps on a sales letter, but I don't think you need 1,000 clicks on a banner to tell whether or not that banner is going to work. You can know within a couple hundred clicks whether the banner is going to work. And that's why I was saying it's a little bit variable. So depending on what your cost per click is, if you set your level at say 300 clicks on a banner, then you could be spending 2x or 3x or 5x if you've got a high CPC. If you've got a super low CPC, cost per click on the banner, 300 clicks may not even be 1x, right? So, but your question is, so what we like to use is something called Teasley Calc. That all it is a statistical significance calculator, and we could go into a whole argument about statistical significance. We just use it as a tool, right? So we'll take 2 banners, we'll type in the impressions each banner's had, we'll type in the clicks that each banner got, and Teasley will tell us how statistically significant the difference is, right? So if you got one banner that's got a 1% click-through rate and another that's got a 0.2% click-through rate, not 2%, but 0.2, so 1/5 of the 1%, then the likelihood that they're going to be similar is not very high if you've got 100 or 200 clicks a banner, right? It's likely that the 0.2 is going to stay 0.2. You can get rid of it and move on to a more likely banner, put a different one in there. So certainly on testing the offer, absolutely though. I would not say you send 300 clicks to the offer and say, oh, it didn't work. That's when I would be sending a couple thousand clicks, because when you're testing different banners, you don't know. The banners are going to affect the conversion. Some are going to convert higher, some are going to convert lower, and if you're testing 4 or 5 of them, then you certainly need several thousand clicks across all the banners to make sure that it's either going to work or not work. So if that doesn't answer the question, let me know and I'll clarify further, but I think I got you sorted. All right, so almost done here. A few more tips. All right, so here's the thing about reps, right? Their job is to sell you advertising. Their job is to get you to buy as much advertising as possible, and they want to sell it as high as a rate as possible, right? So make them your ally. You tell them, look, hey, we're in direct marketing. We're in direct response, and this is a really good thing to look for, which, if I didn't mention already, when you're looking at places to buy advertising, look for other direct response marketers. If you don't see any other direct response marketers, that's usually a bad sign. This is not like the, oh my gosh, I found something nobody else is doing, I'm going to make $1 million. No, it's more like the reason that you aren't seeing other direct response marketers is because it's probably not working. So that would be an example of where you probably would not want to advertise on that site, right? So, but you can, to your rep, you can say, hey, I'm in direct response. I have an unlimited budget as long as it ROIs. That means you're going to spend as much money as possible as long as you're not, going bankrupt. So that'll get them open to helping you, talking with you. They're certainly willing to sell you as much as you can take. And like I mentioned before, start with the 300 by 250 above the fold. The thing with advertisers, the thing with reps, just like being in our business, the hardest customer is the hardest sale is the first sale, right? Getting a new customer is the hardest one. Same thing with the ad reps. I mean, once they've got you as a customer, it's a lot easier to keep you as a customer than it is to go find a new customer. And the reason that matters is because once you've spent money with them, if you have that conversation, hey, our ad campaign worked, it didn't work as well as it needed to, and we're not going to be able to continue unless you can change the CPM or give us some free impressions or something. They're going to work very hard to get you to keep spending money. So I don't try to beat the guys. We don't try to beat the guys down on the first negotiation. The first negotiation is about how can I test something that's in a reasonable price range that I can live with, and feel out their rep, feel out how much they've done, do they know direct response, do they understand the game, and then do a small test. And once you've got that small test, you've got some metrics. Let's just say they charge you, we normally tell them, hey, we want your remnant traffic, we want your cheap, $1, $2, $3 CPM. Sometimes they have that traffic, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the only traffic they've got is $5 traffic or $10 CPM traffic. So you figure out what it is that they've got and what you're willing to test, and you put a test in, and then once you have some data, you know how that traffic converts and how it performs, and then you have data to go back to them and say, look, man, you charge us a $5 CPM and we're not making money. I can't stay here. If you can get me a $3 CPM, that will work and I can keep advertising, and you will be surprised how quickly they're able to make some changes for you, right? And the final thing to remember is there's more than one way to lower the CPM. So if I buy 1 million impressions at $5 CPM, that is $5,000. Million impressions divided by 1,000 is 1,000 times $5 per 1,000 is 5,000, right? Now, if I say, hey man, I want the $3 CPM, they may say we can't do anything lower than $5 because that's our value on our rate card, and we can't go lower because it's going to devalue the price of the site. So you say, no problem, I'll be happy to take some additional impressions for free, and you can still charge me the 5,000 and $5 CPM, in which case you actually get an effective rate that's lower than 5, if that makes sense. For example, if you said, hey, give me 1,000,003 impressions, but charge me for $5 CPM at 1,000,000 impressions, you end up getting an effective rate that's lower. If that doesn't make sense, I can explain it again. But the point is that there's a way to negotiate. So this is another way to negotiate the price down a little bit. Okay, here we go. Last couple things. Let's see here. All right, we're almost done. Got to know your numbers, which means that you got to pay attention to your CPM, which is your cost per thousand, your eCPM, which is your earnings per thousand, your CPC, cost per click, EPC, earnings per click, CPA. And by the way, I'm happy to, you guys will have the recording, but if Dan wants to, he can send out the slide deck. I can make that available. So you can have this as reference. Your lifetime value, you've got to know the metrics of what's working, right? So you want to keep this data and then use that as you leverage into new buys, right? What I mean is that you don't want to start over every time. You want to take the data that you know, hey, my offer's been converting at a 1% conversion rate, and my average order value is X, and I usually take, so I need 100 clicks, and my CPAs are on average $50. Now you have something to work with as you go testing new buys. Everything's different, every network's different, every buy is different, but you have a starting point. Your CPC, these are just calculations of how to get these numbers, right? So your CPC, I'm not going to go through that. You guys can work through the numbers when you want to figure it out. Safe averages down there at the bottom. I usually like to say 0.5% to 0.75% is not a bad, depending on where you're at. If you're on direct buys, that's a workable click-through rate. we really target and push for higher than 1%. We've had 2 and 3% click-through rates on advertising campaigns in the past, simply because of the ghetto banners. They just get higher clicks, right? So, but on a big network, like if you're going to go out to an AdBlade or a Rev Content, you're not going to get a 1% click-through rate. Not likely. Can it happen? It's possible, but it's more likely you're going to have to ask the rep what a good click-through rate on their network is. Could be 0.2%, could be 0.15%. You don't know, but that's where you want. This is again based on site buys. You're going to have to ask the rep. So 0.5% to 0.75% is certainly workable on a site buy. 1% plus is even better. All right, so I talked earlier about starting out with 300 by 250. Once you've done that and you've got something working, the easiest way to get more of it is to go ask for other sizes on the site: 300 by 600, 728 by 90s, 160 by 600, popovers and unders, below the fold, etc., etc. Excuse me. There will be a huge number of options that you can work with. All you have to do is ask about it. Okay, and then finally, got your numbers together. You're going to roll out to networks, and these are all the ones I talked about before. These are just an example of a few. There's tons of them out there. All you got to do is search for them. You just take your data and then roll out to bigger traffic places. So a couple final things. These are what I call advanced tactics. SOV is a share of voice. When you advertise on a site, you're going to have burnout. People see the ads all the time. They know what it looks like. They're familiar with it. They stop responding. The higher your share of voice, the less likely it is going to last longer, so it's going to burn out faster. So keep your share of voice lower, and don't try to buy all the space on the site. Otherwise, you'll be constantly coming up with new ads and new angles. Retargeting is another strategy. That's a whole other conversation, but you can work with any of the retargeting networks to place retargeting pixels so that you can go back and re-advertise to those people again. And then another kind of advanced tactic is to start to customize the offer for the traffic, right? So you can go out, and if you're advertising on Blaze, for example, and in Glenn Beck, and you want to make it convert better, you can start customizing the offer. You can start talking about, hey, visitors of Glenn Beck, we've got a special offer for you, visitors of the Blaze, etc., and tweak the copy and tweak the landing page so that it calls out the actual specific traffic source. Not something you have to do from the beginning, but certainly something you can do to get a little tweak here or there. Also, don't forget testing email drops. Those are list rentals is what we refer to them, and that allows you to take your ad, your email copy would be a dedicated, or you could put a banner in what they call a sponsorship email drop, where it goes out in an email with your banner in it. Don't forget those. They're a great source as well. The challenge with them is that most of the times, unless it's a sponsorship, you're going to be paying a couple grand minimum to test it. So it becomes a little bit more expensive, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? So if you've got a banner that's working on a site, go to that site, say, hey, do you have an email list? I want to run it. Can you send it to, can I advertise in there? And then we'll have data for you. You want to limit your risk here as well, and the best way to do that is ask if they'll give you a quarter send or half a send test. If it's a super big list, a quarter may still be expensive. So you may want to do so you want to see what the smallest test send they'll do is. Always drop the minimum, and then roll out slowly, because a lot of times what happens is they'll give you the freshest leads up front, which then means that as you test more of the list, it will not perform as much. We've done this where we'll do an initial test. It performs great. We think, wow, if we mail the list, we're going to make tons of money. We mail the whole list, and it bombs. It's because we got front-loaded. They gave us the best leads, the freshest leads on the front, and then as we rolled out, we got the stuff that was non-responsive or didn't work, and so the whole campaign didn't back out. So you got to be careful of that. Roll out slowly. You test a bit, then test some more, and then keep testing. Don't roll the whole thing necessarily at one time. Previous emails to a list is a swipe, meaning if you're on somebody's list that you're going to advertise on, make sure that you've used that as a copy farm, so that you can go get examples of copy that's working and what's not working. And don't forget about make goods. That's if you do a drop and it completely bombs. Sometimes there's technical difficulties. Sometimes something happens. You can go back to the advertiser and say, hey, I want to make good, and they will make it good for you. So finally, if you want to look at direct mail and email stuff, you can look at who's mailing what, and that is a way to they keep track of direct mail. They also keep track of email drops. You can go in there and look and see who's mailing stuff, and of course the simplest way is just to get on the list. So that's about it. I think I got a couple of resources, CPV Lab and Volume, and those are what we use for tracking. Any questions, drop them in the box. If you want to sign up on my list, 8figuretraffic.com, EIGHTFIGURE traffic.com. I'm putting that together. I don't have anything really there, just a holding place, but happy to have you on there, and we'll be sharing more traffic and business building stuff with that list moving forward. So that's about it. Dan, you still there?
Steve, I really appreciate it. I hope everybody understands what they've gotten here. You've just gotten the experience from somebody who's purchased millions and millions of clicks, has bought millions of dollars worth of traffic, sold millions of dollars worth of stuff. This was just some super, super high value information, and I really appreciate you sharing it with us, Steve. Thank you.
You bet. I'm glad to be here. Hopefully I didn't get too monotonous and boring there. Hopefully everybody got something out of it.
Do you mind two quickie questions? So
you bet. Go for it.
We got one more from Sayan. He says, do you like running ads to a squeeze page followed by the offer, or do you mostly stick to your other landing page types mentioned earlier?
Bear with me. You know what? I just see, for whatever reason, when they popped in, I didn't see them. So let me see. Marcus I'll answer all these. Marcus had a question here. Any tips on networking at live events, for example, ad tech? Yes. So Marcus, ad tech networking. So ad tech is very big. I mean, that's a place where you're going. If you haven't been, it's a great place to go. Lots of advertising options there. It's kind of like a kid in the candy store scenario, though. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to go home and try these 50 different traffic sources. So I don't know if you're asking specifically about how to handle that, or if you're asking about person to person. So I'll talk about both. For that one, you just go to ad tech, get all the contacts you can, and then you got to kind of have a little sit down and think about which ones are going to be most likely to perform for you. You're going to have to ask questions, right, when you're there. Hey, what kind of traffic are you running? Do you have any direct response marketers on there? You got to keep in mind they're all sales reps, right? So they're all going to try to get you to buy stuff and run traffic with them. So you're going to have to do a little bit of sifting and sorting, which is fine. As far as networking with other people, that's just kind of a skill. I'm sure you've been to events. You got to talk with them and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm looking for. And I always offer to help any way I can, right? You gotta be careful and guard it so that you're not constantly helping everybody else and not running your business. But connecting people, asking them what they need, and say, hey, if you know somebody, you connect them. I don't know if this is answering your question, but the networking side for me is I don't try to do it like a proactive. I'm going to go meet 10 new people. It's more of I'm going to accomplish X, Y, and Z for my business, and I meet who I meet, and then I kind of sift and sort from that to figure out who's most likely to help me move where I want to go, and who I can help, and who would be a good connection to have. So if that doesn't answer the question, shoot it in again, and I'll take care of that. So Cyan, okay. You said that answered the question. All right. Do you like running ads to a squeeze page followed by the offer, or do you mostly stick to your other landing page style? Okay. So again, like my broken record is tested, right? I mean, if it's running in your market, great. If it's not, that's probably an indication. So going to a squeeze page first is a little bit more challenging because you have to then convert that person who got on your list to go back to buy something. Not that it's impossible, it's just harder. Like when somebody's in the heat of the moment, it's easier to get them to click on something, watch the sales video, and buy. But and so you're talking specifically about going into an opt-in page to the landing. You can do that as well. The challenge, though, sometimes is that they're like sometimes the drop-off is so drastic on the squeeze page that you don't get the benefit of all the traffic that you could because they bail on you. So a way to kind of handle that's worked really well is to put that opt-in instead of before the landing page or before the offer, you put it after the buy button. So you drive as many people as you can to the page, they watch the sales video, and then they click buy, and as soon as they click buy, you opt in, right? You say, okay, about to start your order, enter your name and email, and that basically starts the order process and pre-populates the checkout page, but now you've captured the email. So you're not going to get as many emails that way, but you're going to get more qualified emails, and then you can use a cart follow-up sequence, which if you do it right, you can bring in, a third or a half as many sales as a third or half again, meaning if you brought in 10 sales with a follow-up sequence, you may be able to bring in another 3 or 5 sales off of the original 10. I hope that makes sense. So we use cart abandoned emails, and we capture the lead at the cart as opposed to the squeeze page before the offer, unless we're testing a quiz-style lander or something of that nature. So I hope that answers. If it doesn't, drop it in. I'll let you know. Okay, Martin, thank you. I hope you got something out of it again. And if not, if you have any questions, let me know. Dave, you're welcome. And Marcus, you said that took care of it. And Dave again for Dan. So glad you guys got it. Dan, I'm happy to provide the slides if they're needed, and answer any other questions if they come. So.
Oh man, that I really appreciate, Steve. That will be great. I can put up a download link for the slides when we post the replay of this webinar. Thank you for offering that.
You bet. One more question here. Marcus was asking about tips for choosing images for ads. Okay, so this is kind of, I can tell you real quickly, this is one that you're going to have to make your judgment call on. So we've run into situations where, it doesn't happen very often, but a lot of the times, you could run into a protected image, which is why some people prefer doing, can't think of the word, when I told you there, Dan, can you help me out here? What kind of images? Stock images. There we go.
Stock.
Yeah, stock images look like crap, right? They look like crap, and everybody knows they're stock images. So we like to just do a Google search, right? So like some of these ads that you can't see let me show my screen again here. So I think it's showing. So over here, these ads, like these ads here, and these pictures, and that was Google searches, right? That was so. And the reason I say it's a call on your end is because it's technically not the best way to do it, but it works, and that's a call you're going to have to make, right? So if anybody ever reached out and said, and we've had people say, hey, that image, you can't use that, then we'll take it down. It's just that when I'm trying to get something working, I want to give it the best chance of it working, and I don't want to have to try to sort through 100 different stock images that suck. I'd rather get the banner working, and then when I know it's working, if I want to clean it up, then you can go test some stock or royalty-free images or whatever. The challenge with the royalty-free and stock is that they look like it, and everybody knows that it's stock, and that they just doesn't have the same pull. So
Johnny
I don't
Carson.
see any other questions now, Dan. So this one. What's that?
I was going to say Johnny Carson used to do the shtick about stock images in ads, and they would show these stock images, and they'd use you could tell they were stock images. These different advertisers would use these same stock images in a bunch of different ads. It's the same couple in an erectile dysfunction ad, in an insurance ad, in a retirement condo ad. It's just everybody knows they're stock images.
Exactly, and that's just one thing that screams, hey, this is an advertisement, don't pay attention to me. So, real images of real people, that tends to work better.
Well, Steve, thanks again for everything. You shared a lot of valuable stuff. I really appreciate it, and thanks again for coming on and doing this. Thanks, everybody, for being on our Knights of the Round Table meeting, and we will see y'all next month on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.